Function with Purpose Podcast. All things health, wellness, fitness, and education through the physical therapy perspective. I am Dr. Amy Bullock, owner and founder of Fortress Physical Therapy. Fortress PT is here to serve the Charlotte metro area by highlighting the importance of how and why physical therapy should be a part of your health and wellness lifestyle. Here we go. Welcome to Season 11, Episode 3 of the Function with Purpose podcast. Dr. Amy here with you guys today. Thanks for joining in. Maybe you have a coffee in hand. Maybe you're driving into work. Maybe you're driving to lunch, or you're walking or rucking, or just plain up sitting on the porch with the best beverage on earth, which is actually coffee. All right. A little bit of a teaser, I guess, with the title, but I think one of the biggest mistakes you can make or not incorporate when preventing re-injury. So let me be clear first. Re-injury will happen. Period. Because when someone, or i.e. myself, experiences an injury, I'm prone to some elbows and some shoulder, some left hip specifically, and even Achilles now, re-injury, or a fire pops up per se. Re-injury occurs if you have sustained a previous injury or setback to that area. So it will happen. But what is one of the biggest mistakes you can make when trying to, I guess, would be lengthening the time period before a re-injury occurs? So how do you or I, we have this ceiling, and we want to get away from this injury ceiling, right? Say, I don't know, on a 0 to 20 scale, that this injury ceiling is at 8. How do we lengthen ourselves or personally get to that 20 level or even beyond from this injury threshold that's at number 8? What is the biggest mistake? What is missing? Besides recovery and all that stuff. I know I'm a huge advocate on recovery and finding balance, but this is going to tie into a patient story of mine. The biggest mistake you can make when preventing re-injury or trying to lengthen yourself away from that, in this case, level 8 or 8 ceiling threshold of where injury occurs to 20 and up, because we want to strive upwards. We want to lengthen that distance. The biggest mistake is avoiding fitness, avoiding exercise, avoiding this realm of fitness that does incorporate cardiovascular health, resistance training, movement, your steps. Just not making fitness a part of your routine, a part of your habits, thus creating the identity or reshaping your future self. How do you make the body more robust? How do you make yourself, your ligaments, your joints, your muscle tissue, your tendons, your nervous system more robust? You have to dose it. You have to expose it to fitness. That is the biggest mistake. If you're not incorporating some type of fitness into your daily routine, guess what's going to keep happening? you're going to still be at that level 8 re-injury threshold rather than at 20 and up, rather than building that bridge or gap. So that way, you're by not doing fitness, you're keeping yourself at level 8 or at 0, right? Envision that. If you had, just put numbers on a piece of paper or a chalkboard, 0, and you're going vertically up all the way to 20, etc. And then you circle the number 8. I'm just using that as an example. Number 8 is where injury always happens. So how can I prevent myself from injury to reoccur? I have to lengthen that distance from 9 all the way up to infinity. I have to make that specific gap area from 9 and up bigger, taller. So that way when I do have a setback, I don't go or set back all the way to the number 8 or below it. If I'm at 20, maybe my setback puts me at level 15. This is just some visual for you. And then I go through some fitness, rehab, recovery practices, and I'm above 20 now. Now I'm at 25. And then my next setback that might happen might be at 23. Well, guess what? That original number 8, you're lengthening that gap. And fitness is where it's at, because that's how you build a robust body. That is how you expand longevity, create optimal functioning. So this leads into a patient of mine, and gosh, every time he comes in, we just have some deep conversations. You know, we're doing our physio thing, recovery, and some fitness things. But it took him, oh gosh, maybe 2.5 years. I think we've been working together for like 3 years now. So maybe 2.5, maybe 2 years, or maybe even, actually it was just kind of recently. So I'll give it 2.5, 2 years. He came to his session a time or two ago and he was like, you know what, Amy, I am feeling great. Guess what I've been doing? And I've realized I should have done this a long time ago, and I know you were preaching it to me time and time and time and time again, and I just mentally fought back. He's like, I started going to the gym and I started lifting weights on the Nautilus equipment. I was doing the leg press and I'm doing the lat pull down. And I'm just starting to lightly get some load into my knee joint, because this particular patient had knee surgery for the 4th time. And then when he went to that surgeon again for a follow-up after that knee surgery, like 4 weeks post-op, he's like, okay, this should hold until we do a knee replacement later on in the future on you. He was like, what? He's like, I don't want any more I don't need any more knee surgeries. Well, guess what? The biggest missing piece is fitness. And thank gosh, you know, he finally manned up to himself and was like, okay, I'm like burning wicks at both ends of the candle. I have got to do something about this. Like, yes, when he comes in for PT, we sprinkle in a little bit of fitness, or if his knee's bothering him a little more that day, or his back perhaps, we tend to do a lot of more hands-on rather than fitness. So it just really depends on when he came in and what he presented with. And every time I'm like, man, you gotta get into the gym. Trust me. You gotta trust me on this. You will feel so much better, right? Because if we don't have fitness or resistance or aerobic training, our bodies will go in reverse. Or in this example that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, instead of at level 8 where his re-injury threshold is, he stays at level 8 and below. So he's in this constant vicious cycle of injuries per se popping up. Oh, I gotta blow that injury out. Put that fire away. Oh, here's this one, my knee again. Dang. I can't do my performance shows on weekends because when I carry this equipment and go up the 6-inch stairs with a railing and I'm holding it on one side, too much pressure goes through the knee. I can't do it. Then I try to, when I'm singing and dancing and I'm doing some twisting motions in the knee, like it just can't tolerate it. Well, you have to dose it. You have to dose your body with fitness. And I'm not saying go in 100% fully loaded, locked and loaded, ham, as we say. If you don't know what the acronym is, ask one of your friends, especially if you grew up in the 80s and 90s. You know what I'm talking about. We don't want to go ham, but we want to dip. We want to get knee deep. Do that for a little while. Then we go hip deep, right? Just like learning to swim. Then we go neck deep or chest deep. Then neck deep, and then we're full deep and we're learning how to swim. It's no different than incorporating fitness into your routine. So if you strengthen your body's tissues and even nerves, guess what starts to happen? You start to feel stronger, right? Your tissue capacity starts to build. You can tolerate more load. You can, instead of doing your fitness routine 2 times a week, you add a 3rd day, and then a 4th, and then a 5th, and then it's 7 days out of the week. Then you start sprinkling in some sport here and there, and some other recovery practices. We don't always have to be constantly surrounded in the gym atmosphere. Use the environment, use the outside as our gym, as our play space. Maybe it's someone you follow on YouTube. Maybe it's a yogi, which I've had some suggestions and I need to get to that. But going back to this particular patient's timeline, I knew deep down that he wanted it. He just needed to convince himself that he needed it. So there were moments when he came in for his physio session that I would take him through like a little mini fitness routine that would incorporate something with his knee and hip, or we did a 5x5 back squat and kind of increase load as he saw fit and perceived that day. And then when we ended our session, he was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel great." And I'm like, well, just imagine if you actually continue that, take what you got in today and hit it 2 days later at the gym or something. Yeah. But I think one of the biggest things, not only the title of this podcast, the biggest mistake you can make when preventing re-injury, right? Avoiding fitness is the answer. But from the clinician standpoint, it's reframing how we relay our message to patients to help them and realize that to complete the full circle with physiotherapy, fitness needs to be a part of that. And it's honestly a psychology game with patients. It's like you kind of, from the clinician standpoint, you have to kind of like introduce patients to like, oh, like I had a knee surgery. I didn't know I could squat with the barbell again. I didn't know that was a thing. It's about breaking through those mental barriers and not going down, as a lot of the public does, that social media route that, oh, this person can't do this now anymore because they did have a knee surgery or they had their ACL reconstructed and they can't do quick cut movements anymore because, that's just out of the picture now. You can't do that. That's a bunch of BS. Oh, you have symptoms in your arms and I know what I'm talking about, and you shouldn't raise your arms above your head because you're going to make it worse. Patients do not want to hear that. As a clinician, I hear that about other clinicians practicing. That is horse shit. Excuse me. That's not life. That's not living to your potential. That's not helping the patient help themselves. And that is going to put them in a spiral that they literally can't do anything. They're just sitting on the couch watching TV. We don't want that. We don't want that for people. Because if you're in the healthcare space and you own your own practice, whether you're a PT, massage therapist, chiro, physician's assistant, medical doctor, doctor of osteopathy, nurse practitioner, speech therapist, clinical psychologist, it's all an interaction, and it links down to the psyche of the person. So from the PT perspective, I remember coming out of school, you have to rehab someone. You have to rehab them out of a meniscus surgery, and then they're done. And then they're discharged from PT. That is literally what PT school kind of taught me. Once they're finished with their 6 weeks, three times a week for 6 weeks rehab post meniscus surgery repair, they're fine. They're good. Their knee's good to go. Meanwhile, the patient in front of you is a 23-year-old female who wants to get back to playing AAU basketball, or has redshirted the past 3 years because of her knee and it led to this surgery, and she wants to use her college years to play 3 more years of ball. 3 times a week for 6 weeks is not going to cut it. They have to get back to fitness. It's no different than that patient in front of you who is a person who has a full-time job. They have grown children, so, they're empty nesters. They're in their 50s or 60s, perhaps. This particular patient is in his 50s. He's like, man, I used to be in shape. I used to do all that stuff. But I can't because of my knee. I'm like, who says you can't? You're here. Let's go do it. Let's go do some fitness. Let's do some hands-on, and then we'll reiterate what we did hands-on into fitness. Because that is how you build and prevent re-injury from occurring. You go from level 8 to level 20, and then some, and then some, and then 30, and then 50. Because re-injury will happen, period. It will. But we just want to make sure that distance between the threshold and above or away, when you do have a setback, it's not close to that 8 mark. Again, I'm using this as an example. If you wrote 0 to 20 or infinity on a piece of paper going up, 0 at the bottom and your highest number at the top. Fitness is where it's at. The more fit you are, the more muscle you have in your body, the better off your joints, ligaments, muscles, tendons, and even nerves will feel, yet alone your psyche, right? You're building more robustness. So, avoiding fitness is the biggest mistake you can make when preventing re-injury, because we want to lengthen ourselves away from that threshold. We want to surpass it. Fitness, whatever the fitness may be, must be consistent, must be sustainable, must be enjoyable. Fitness needs to blend cardiovascular endurance or training with local muscle stimulus or heavy weightlifting. Balance, coordination, plyometric work, mobility or flexibility, stamina, which all affect the body's capacity to do more work over time. And this does go back to the ultimate definition of fitness. Constantly varied, high-intensity movements across modal domains within a short time frame or long, moderate, or long time frame, i.e. that is the CrossFit methodology. And that type of methodology can vary. But if you hit those concepts entirely, it makes sense, right? That's exactly what needs to happen. And when someone comes in for physiotherapy and they don't have fitness within their routine and they don't want to make it a part of their routine, I'm sure as hell going to try to expose them to that when they are in my office, when they are in the Fortress of Solitude. So, reflect. What is holding you back from making fitness a part of your routine? Oh, it's hard. No, I don't cut that. It's not hard. As my boss at the gym would say, fighting cancer is hard. Making fitness a part of your routine daily is not hard. There needs to be a want. There needs to be a need. There needs to be a habit. There needs to be this change. You've never made a change before. How do you know what that feels like? So start making the change so you can experience the positiveness of those feelings after. And when you experience those positive effects, guess what's going to happen? You're going to keep doing it. And that's what we want. So, hopefully that gives you some perspective today. Man, does this fire me up. I definitely have a lot of passion for this. And realizing more and more, even for those new physios out there specifically, you come out of school, you rehab someone, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop after that. Because most likely they're going to get re-injured, right? So how do you lengthen that gap from re-injury to building more robustness? It's fitness. It's blending in some strength and conditioning or the CrossFit methodology concepts, right? Not CrossFit itself. It doesn't have to be CrossFit itself. It's not that crazy stuff we see on TV, right? It doesn't have to be like that. We're not Olympians. So, I challenge you. Reflect. Why is fitness not a part of your routine or habit? What's holding you back? Make it so easy for you to achieve to take that one step closer. Because when you take that one step closer, you're going to feel better. And once you start feeling better, you're going to do more of it. More and more and more and more. But then finding balance until it becomes an actual habit. And then you won't have frequent re-injuries or setbacks occurring all the time. They happen less and less and less and less. Maybe 1 or twice a year. Instead of once a month or once every other week. Find it. Build it. Want it. Go through it. Reap the benefits. If you're having trouble with that, if you're in the Charlotte metro area, reach out. I would love to work with you. I'm very active on the Fortress Physical Therapy Instagram page. Give me a follow there. You can totally send me a message. We can connect. Let's start your physiotherapy journey. Let's start blending in fitness practices into your health, wellness, fitness, and recovery routine. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. It's time to make fitness a priority. That's a wrap for today's episode, Function with Purpose podcast. For more information on this episode, please check out the show notes within your podcast app. Be sure to subscribe, like, share, or drop your comments and questions below. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Thanks for the listen. Pursuit, precision, purpose.